Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Oscar prediction update video for the month of July. Now, not a whole lot has changed since the June video, but I felt it was important for me to make another update. We have experienced the Astra Mid-Season Awards, which I made two videos about, one about predicting the nominations and one about reacting to the nominations. I decided not to make a video for the wins because there wasn't a whole lot to say that was big. Sinners swept, what a shocker. But I will say, while a few minor things have changed that I will get into, this is probably going to be a shorter video than you're used to. Because right now we're in sort of a lull period. We've had Cannes, we've had the Mid-Season Awards, which clarified what we already knew. Sinners is the only real contender from the first half of the year. And then it's a few months until we hit the fall film festivals. So there's not a whole lot. We're gonna get a few more trailers, and we've gotten a few that might give us an indication of what's gonna happen with some of the contenders. But this is just sort of the waiting game period as of right now. So in terms of what's changed, let's start with best casting. I have added sentimental value. I'm realizing now that that is going to be one of the biggest awards contenders of the year, and it's probably going to get into a lot of different categories. So I have it here because Inga Ibsdottir, I can't see her name right now. I'll see it again later. But she is a newcomer surprise, and her on top of Reinsve, Skarsgård, and Fanning, I think there's going to be enough love for the movie overall that it can contend for casting. Although you never really know what's going to happen with this category. Again, we don't know if this is just ensemble or if they're going to go for newcomer awards. You will notice that one that I did have in the top 10 last month that I don't have now is Rivals of Mzia King. That is an interesting case because that movie got very, very strong reviews after South by Southwest, and a lot of people had their eyes on it as a contender. But then months went by and no major studio picked it up, which is really, really surprising. I don't know if people just don't know what they have, but it's starting to seem unlikely that that movie is going to be able to capitalize off of its success. Meanwhile, one movie that I have added into the ranking that I didn't have last month is Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere. Really do not like that new title, but from what I've seen of the trailer, this is a movie that not a lot of people are looking forward to, and I think many of us are kind of dreading. But I'm starting to feel like it's probably best to err on the side of caution and predict it to get nominated for stuff anyway. I really don't want to do this coming right off of Complete Unknown, which I really didn't like. But I do think that, I don't know, maybe they're just going to go for it. It doesn't look like there's anything terribly special about this one. But now that we know for a fact that Michael is not going to contend for the Oscars this year, that's going to be the music biopic that everyone has their eyes on. So I do think that Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere could potentially do very well, although I'll be certainly very happy if it doesn't. So, next up we have Best Documentary Feature, and not a whole lot has changed. I honestly don't know much about most of these documentaries, but I have heard that The Perfect Neighbor is very strong, and that is likely our contender for the win. So I still have that number one, and I've moved a few of the pieces around, although, again, I'm going to find out more about these documentaries at a later date. International Feature, I have moved up It Was Just an Accident to second place and No Other Choice down to third because we simply don't know much about that film. But I still want to have hope that No Other Choice can be a big contender for Park Chan-wook. We just truly don't know at this point. And it is very, very possible that all five of the nominees here do come from Cannes. And actually, are almost all of these Neon? That would be pretty crazy for Neon to just completely dominate this category, but that might actually be possible. Now, one category where I do have a lot to say on is animated feature, because this is proving to be a very interesting year. A lot of the main studio films are disappointing, which does open up the doors for more out-of-the-box choices to contend. The main reason why I have Scarlet in the number one position is because I no longer feel confident predicting either Elio or Zootopia 2. Now, full disclosure, I love Elio, and I wish I could keep it in the number one position, but it's very clear to me that this film just doesn't have the same amount of passion you would need to win animated feature. And hopefully, when this hits Disney Plus, a lot of people realize how good it is, but the passion is certainly not there for a win, though the nomination does at least feel safe. Zootopia 2, a lot of people have this at number one. They're sort of defaulting to it, and it does make a certain amount of sense, but I do want to caution people because A, no sequel outside of the Toy Story franchise has ever won in this category, and B, the last three Disney Animated Studios films did not get nominated in this category. Disney is really, really hitting a rut creatively, and I think this movie would have to be on the same level of quality as the first film in order to win, which I think is possible, but unlikely given their most recent output. So I don't have faith that Zootopia 2 can win, and in trying to figure out what can, I landed upon Scarlet. This is a film from the director of Wolf Children, which has gotten a big cult following over the years, Mirai, which was nominated in 2018, and Belle, which came very close to a nomination. So this is a director that a lot of people have their eyes on, and the film is getting like a prime December release, so I think the studio is very confident in it. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I'm crossing my fingers because I feel like it's not going to be one of the two Disney movies. I feel like they're really going to want to go out of their way to go with something else. Arco, that one just feels cute to me. Like it's people liked it at Cannes, but it doesn't seem like the sort of thing that's going to have a ton of passion behind it to go all the way for a win. And then K-pop Demon Hunters is interesting because this is the one that showed up on Netflix out of nowhere and just took the internet by storm. I think this one does have the passion to get nominated, although whether that can translate all the way to a win seems unlikely at this point. But I do think that's going to be Netflix's big push. And then everything else, I just don't know. This is shaping up to be a very weak category. Hopefully we're able to get a solid group of 5 nominees and a solid winner. For Best Sound, so I still have F1 the movie getting nominated. I think almost took it out, but I feel like based on the reception, that movie is a sound nomination or bust. Like that's what it's going to get. And I've moved up Avatar to the number one position. I feel kind of weird about this because, spoiler alert, I don't have Avatar getting nominated for Best Picture, so this is probably not a smart move, but I do feel like it's secure for the nomination, and it's probably not wise to just put Sinners at number one for everything, and so I don't know. These top 5 all make sense to me as nominees, but I don't really know what the winner is, and so I just have Avatar there more as a placeholder than anything else. The Lost Bus, which is at number 8, that's one that I really have my eye on because it's one that I had as an across-the-board contender when I did my year in advance predictions, and then I sort of took it out when I realized no one else was predicting it. But the trailer does look promising, and I'm starting to wonder, maybe I will have been proven right at the end of the day. I don't know, but I just really want to have my eye on that film because it could be bigger than people think it is. And then Warfare is just a number 10 slot that probably isn't going to happen, but I'm hearing some people really bang the drum for it. Best Song. Okay, so this is interesting. For the longest time, I had Dear Me from Diane Warren Relentless at number 1, and I actually didn't realize that this movie had already come out. I sort of assumed there was going to be a little bit more fanfare about the film, but no, it's come and gone and hasn't made a splash at all. And Diane Warren does not need her films to make a splash in order to get her nominated, but if this was going to be the song that would finally get her an Oscar trophy, it would need to make more of a splash than it is now, unfortunately. And after doing some thinking, I really do think I Lied to You can take this because that is such a big moment in the movie. It reminds me a lot of Naatu Naatu and Amal, and this is a movie that voters are going to go crazy for anyway, and I just feel like the song makes a lot of sense. For Wicked for Good, I found out now that there are 2 original songs, one for Cynthia and one for Ariana, and I don't know which one is going to be the bigger push. I have them both getting nominated. And And to be perfectly honest, it's always really, really tough for a pre-existing musical to have original songs added to it. And I don't know if they're going to fit. I hope that they can both get nominated, but I don't think either one is going to have the passion it needs to actually win the Oscar. And there may or may not be an original Bruce Springsteen song in Deliver Me From Nowhere. If there is, I'm definitely going to predict it. But as of right now, I don't know. And I'm also just keeping an eye on Zootopia 2 or K-Pop Demon Hunters for either one to get a song in, because it would really suck if we had another year of no animated movie getting represented outside of their designated category. But given how weak the animation lineup is this year, that could very well be possible. Original score, there's not a whole lot to say about this category. I have added Frankenstein as a nominee. That movie is interesting. I'm really surprised by the amount of people who think that this is going to be a across-the-board contender, when my gut says they're not going to go for more than one horror film, even if they do really like Del Toro. So I don't have this doing well in picture, but I do have it doing very well below the line. And I am keeping my eye on it. I've done enough Oscar predicting in my lifetime to know that usually when everyone else is saying something's going to be a contender and I'm the outlier, a lot of the times I'm proven wrong. So I certainly have Frankenstein doing better than I did a month ago, but I'm not fully committing to the idea of it as a across-the-board contender yet. Visual effects. Now, what's funny about this category is that we all know Avatar is taking this walking in the door, but the other 4 slots feel very much up in the air. Superman just premiered, and it seems like that's probably solid enough to get nominated, and Fantastic Four is coming out soon. I think that's good. I don't really know what else to go for, and I randomly decided to add Tron in there because maybe that could be a fun lone VFX nominee. I really don't know. Wicked, I mean, it got in last year, and it's probably a safe enough bet that it's going to get in again this year. But at the same time, they don't usually go for films just because they're across the board. Visual effects is the one category where usually they will ignore a film. And that actually segues interestingly into Sinners. So I said a month ago that I couldn't really remember that many crazy special effects in the movie. And I completely forgot about the cloning Michael B. Jordan stuff. I guess we're so used to seeing that in movies, it doesn't even register when it's totally seamless and you buy it. I actually just watched Mickey 17 last night, which also has very seamless cloning effects. But that movie doesn't seem like it's going to be a contender at all, whereas Sinners is, we know it's getting in across the board. But I do think at a certain point we have to be semi-realistic about how many nominations Sinners can get. And my gut is saying it's not going to get nominated for visual effects. But I don't know. Frankenstein's possible. F1's possible. There's a lot of different ways this category can go. And while I feel mostly confident about Fantastic Four and Superman, everything else is just a gigantic question mark. So we're really just going to have to wait and see what the Bake Off does and what the rest of the year has in store for us. For makeup and hairstyling, I don't think much has changed. I still have Frankenstein at number 1. Wicked. Sinners, I think, is going to get in, definitely. 28 Years, hearing a lot of good stuff about that film, haven't seen it yet. And Smashing Machine, it's technically the same top 5 I had, just with a few things moved around. I don't know how well Toxic Avenger is going to do, or anything else is going to do. I am hearing that there's some really good makeup work in Superman, so I might consider that one, but I don't know how loved that film is going to be overall. Although, seeing how it's a very, very big box office contender, I don't know, maybe they'll want to throw it a bone here if the category of makeup is weak. Now, for costume design, still Wicked, still Hamnet, still Sinners. Oh, it's actually the exact same top 5. I didn't really change anything. Marty Supreme, maybe. Springsteen, maybe. One Battle After Another, maybe. There's just not a whole lot to say about this particular category. Although Kiss the Spider-Woman, not the type of movie that I think is going to do well in most categories, but this might be the one real shot it has. This and supporting actress. Production design, still not a ton of big changes. I think Avatar, this is one of the nominations that it's going to get. I think I only have it getting in for 3. And yeah, Sinners, Hamnet, Frankenstein, and Wicked, that seems like a really solid top 5. I think Wake Up Dead Man is possible, but I don't know if it's going to happen. And Begonia, from what we've seen of the trailer, is not like a super surreal sci-fi thing that we've seen in some other Lanthimos movies. It feels very contemporary, so I don't know how well they're going to do that or how well they're going to love that movie overall. For cinematography, yeah, I think it's the same top 5. I've just added Marty Supreme. So, yeah, there's really not that much. I think Springsteen or Avatar or After the Hunt could contend. After the Hunt is one that I'm still holding off on a little bit. Again, much like Frankenstein, a lot of other people think that's getting in, and I just keep being reminded of other Lanthimos movies. I saw something today that was like, oh, test screenings for the movie say it's very awards friendly. And I never know what to think about test screenings because the vibe in the room is very, very different from the vibe that you're going to get when the movie eventually comes out. Often it's very heavily skewed in the movie's favor, because they want to create good headlines. But I really don't know. I really don't know about this. And film editing, I have Begonia at number 1, which might be a bit of a mistake. I am hearing that the editing and sentimental value is better than you would expect for that kind of movie, so I have it in the top 5. And outside of that, yeah, Jake Kelly, I think potentially. That movie is, again, a big question mark other than it's supposedly Netflix's big push. So crossing my fingers that it's going to turn out to be really promising. Screenplay. So this is shaping up to be one of those years where one of the screenplay categories is a lot more crowded than the other. And in this case, adapted screenplay is the one that appears to be weak. Begonia, Hamnet, and One Battle After Another all seem relatively safe. No Other Choice, I know that not a lot of people have that, and spoiler alert, I have taken it out of picture. But I just feel like there's going to be enough love for Park Chan-wook, and the category is going to be weak, and maybe this could be a, not Mrs. Screenplay, Mrs. Picture, but lone screenplay, kind of like Worst Person in the World. I don't have a ton of evidence for that other than the category is just weak, and I have Springsteen getting in because Complete Unknown got in, and maybe just err on the side of caution with that movie. I know a lot of people have Wake Up Dead Man, and it makes sense, but it would just be kind of crazy for that franchise to just pull 3 consecutive screenplay nominations in a row. So I don't know if I can really see that going all the way. Meanwhile, in original screenplay, I've actually decided to take out... I had Sinners at the number 1 position, and now I have Sentimental Value. I don't know if Sinners is going to absolutely dominate like I thought it might at one point. And I could still see Sinners take director, but screenplay is one where they might want to go for the more dialogue traditional film. And so I'm leaning more towards Sentimental Value at the moment, but I do think it could be very, very close between those two films. Jay Kelly and Marty Supreme feel likely, and It Was Just an Accident, from what I've heard about the way that story is structured, also feels likely. And then it kind of drops off after the top 5, in my opinion. But now we get to the acting categories, and this is where things get interesting. So for Best Supporting Actor, I have switched Sandler and Skarsgård. I had Sandler at number 1 originally, but Stellan Skarsgård, I've just heard so many great things about his performance in that film, and he is a legend who's been working in the industry for a long time, and I think he could really, really... Clearly, a lot of people are already have at number 1. Sandler is also possible, but no one's seen that movie yet, and so I don't want to fully jump on that train quite yet. Sean Penn, I think, is in. Mescal, and I am going to go with Jeremy Strong. He was nominated last year. He's in the music biopic. Sure, let's go for him. Now, I do want to real quickly mention the Sinners Boys, because last month I had Delroy Lindo very, very close to getting on, and I had Miles Catton missing the top 10 altogether, because I just naturally assumed that Lindo would be the push because he's the veteran actor, and Catton, because he's new, he would just be regulated to winning Best Newcomer awards. But that is clearly not what's been going on. If you look at what's happened with the Astra Midseason Awards, they did not nominate Lindo for supporting actor, and they nominated Catton and gave him the win. Now, I don't know if that's going to be reflective of everything going forward, which is why I still have Lindo ahead of Catton, but I have added Catton and moved Lindo down, because I do think that the two are a little bit more neck and neck, and it's going to be really interesting to see which of them gets the bigger push, or maybe neither of them do when they cancel each other out. And speaking of the Sinners supporting cast, if you look in supporting actress, I still have Haley Steinfeld at number 10, and not Wunmi Mosaku, because Steinfeld won the Astra Midseason Award over Mosaku, and that reminds me an awful lot of what happened the Everything Everywhere year, where Jamie Lee Curtis won the Astra Midseason Award over Stephanie Hsu, and that was an early indicator that Curtis was going to be the bigger push over Hsu. And so I do think that Steinfeld is going to be the bigger push because she's a previous nominee, and also because she's the token white person in the cast who's like the cast cheerleader. Now, I don't know if Steinfeld's going to go on to win the Oscar like Curtis did. Curtis had this big career narrative behind her, but I do think there's a world where Steinfeld contends for a nomination. And then everything else, I do now think Teyana Taylor is the more likely person from One Battle After Another to contend, but I don't know how far that can take her. Sentimental Value has Inga Ibsdottir Lillias, newcomer, as well as Elle Fanning, who's been in the industry for a while and has been building up to a nomination, arguably came pretty close for A Complete Unknown. So I think it's going to be tough to see which of those two has the bigger push for the studio for supporting actress. Glenn Close, I do think is possible just because she's Glenn Close. Emily Blunt, also playing a supportive wife, could contend for that. Ayo Edebiri, last year we saw what happened with Kieran Culkin coming off of a hit TV show, and I do think Edebiri could graduate to being a movie star if After the Hunt is big, or even if it's not big, I do think she could be the bigger push from the film. I still have Grande at number 1. I've moved Paltrow up a little bit, but honestly, I don't know much of what to do with this category. And I will say, as long as there's some shakiness with the nominees, I can rest easy knowing that Grande is probably going to be the frontrunner, at least for right now. I really want Grande to win for part 2. And Zoe Saldana, she recently had that really weird statement about her Oscar statuette identifies as trans, which I think made a few people turn against her and made a few people be like, you know what, Ariana should have won that year. So let's cross fingers and hope that this happens. Okay, so I am actually on a little bit of a time crunch, so I will try to speed this up. Chalamet, Clooney, and Plemons in lead actor I think are all likely. Jeremy Allen White, unfortunately, if that movie's really going to go all the way, he's likely in, and DiCaprio at number 5. I do think Jordan is possible, but I'm hesitant to actually predict him for now. Denzel, unfortunately, has moved down because a lot of people are not that excited about the movie as I was. And, I have added Wagner Moura. I think a lot of people are really, really excited about the potential of this film after what happened with I'm Still Here last year. I would caution against that. I don't know if it's going to be the same thing every year, but it is certainly possible that Moura could contend. And Dwayne Johnson, I think I unfortunately have to keep him in the top 10, even though I don't actually think he's going to get nominated for that. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot to say in Best Actor. Best Actress, I have moved Renate Reinsve to the number 1 position, just because I think Sentimental Value is really going to go far. And Hamnet, I'm not so sure, but Buckley also could contend. Erivo, Stone, and Lawrence round out the top 5, and then I kind of don't really know the rest of this category. Rose Byrne, I do think could be the indie darling that gets a lot of critical love, but I ultimately don't think it's going to go all the way. And I've talked before about Julia Roberts. I don't have a ton of high hopes for that movie, and I do think it's been a while since Roberts gave a really great performance, but I'm open to being surprised. Best Director, so I've moved a few people around here. Panahi is in, and Anderson is out. That's a bit of a risk because he is Paul Thomas Anderson, and he does get nominated a lot. But I just have this feeling that this movie is not going to fully connect with people. Maybe it's going to get in picture, but it's not going to make the top 5 for director. And Safdie is in. You know, it's funny. I originally thought about putting Safdie in the top 5 and taking out Chloe Zhao, but she's kind of the only woman seriously in contention unless I'm missing someone. So I kind of feel the need to keep Zhao in the top 5 for now. And then outside of that, I really don't know. But I do still have a lot of confidence in Ryan Coogler and in the film overall, which brings us into Best Picture. So this is interesting, and I wanted to share this all with you. When Sinners came to HBO Max on 4th of July, I did actually sit down my mom in front of the movie and ask her to watch it, because that was a big litmus test. I really wanted to see how the film would play with her generation, because a lot of Oscar voters are in her generation. And the thing is, my mom got halfway through the movie. She got as far as the I Lied to You sequence, which she did enjoy. And she did say that she was enjoying the film, but once the film really started to take that turn into horror, she said she didn't want to continue watching. She said she got very, very nervous with horror films and anxious films and politely declined to continue. But she did have a certain amount of respect for the film, and she understood why it was getting the praise that it was getting. So that's a really interesting reaction, and I'm very curious how many voters are going to have similar issues. The movie, very much the first half of it is not horror, and then when it takes that swing, is that going to be something that a lot of voters are comfortable with? Now, the fact that the movie is an early release and the fact that it has all of this attention on it means a lot of voters are going to at least try to see it. Like, voters know that this film is a big deal. And notably, this year, the Oscars have changed the rules and said you have to vote. If you want to vote for Best Picture, you have to see all the nominees. Crazy that wasn't a rule already. But voters are going to have to actually sit down and watch this film. And there are voters who are uncomfortable with horror as a genre. So I do think Sinners, while I do have it at number 1, it's not safe by any means. I think the horror bias is going to be the big thing that keeps it out. But at the same time, I don't really know if there's anything else that I would feel comfortable putting at number 1 right now. Sentimental Value, I've heard very good things about, and I've heard it's a very good movie that can get a bunch of nominations, but I've also heard people compare it to something like Marriage Story or Banshees of Inisherin. Like, this is a solid drama, but it doesn't really have a narrative behind it. Sinners has one heck of a narrative, and I think that's really, really going to push it far into being a top contender for Best Picture. I don't know if it can actually go the distance in the long run, but I am really rooting for it. In terms of everything else, I think Begonia is possible, but we don't know how weird that's going to be. Wicked, I would love for that to go far, but we don't know. Hamnet, Jay Kelly, Marty Supreme, all feel safe right now. I know not everyone has faith in Hamnet, but having read the book, I feel like that's going to hit with Oscar voters. One Battle After Another, we don't know, maybe that disappoints, but I feel like I have to at least keep that in the top 10 for picture. And it was just an accident. After that really, really strong Cannes reception, I think it can happen. We can get more than one non-English language film in there. And then I very reluctantly have Springsteen at number 10, just because it sort of feels natural for me. No other choice we don't know about. After the Hunt, we don't know about. Lost Bus, I think, is possible, but I don't know. I've seen some people just default to putting Avatar in, but the thing about Avatar is, yes, you don't underestimate James Cameron. Yes, it's going to make a lot of money. Yes, it's going to be very good. But for this to, if this is the third Avatar movie and it gets into Best Picture, then it will be the third trilogy to get 3 movies into Best Picture after Lord of the Rings and The Godfather. And I like Avatar, but is it on that quality? I don't necessarily think so. And even if you do, Fire and Ash is not going to be the finale. There's more movies to come after it. It just feels a little bit weird to keep nominating this franchise for Best Picture for every single one of their entries, especially when we already have Sinners and Wicked, that two blockbusters that we know for a fact are contending. And I feel a lot more confident about both of them getting into picture than I do about Avatar. So, I don't know. Let me know if you have any interesting thoughts that I didn't have. We're starting to see more and more groups post their Oscar predictions. More groups get into this now. As far as you ask me, it's never too early to speculate about this stuff. Coming off of the middle of the year, we do have a few months to wait. There's going to be this dry spell until the Fall Film Festival, but I will keep you updated. I will keep you posted. Let me know if you enjoyed this. Let me know if there's any other kinds of videos you'd like me to make. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you later. Bye.